Welcome to the WanderLearn Show. I'm your host, Tapon. In this episode, I interview Alexander Svetsky. He is the founder and CEO of an app that allows you to make events, and they can be free, and just like Eventbrite and that kind of stuff. But its true breakthrough is the fact that it is Bitcoin native, and that allows you to use Bitcoin and other traditional payments so that it can replace the other methods that you use to host events. It could be a game changer. Bitcoin has a lot of promise as a technology, but so far it has few killer apps out there, and this could be one of them, especially for low-income countries which have trouble hosting events. Because if you live in a low-income country, you often don't have the banking rails and the traditional payment methods to collect payment, and this could really help them quite a bit. What's fascinating also is that Alex started his journey as making an app made for travelers, and he has since pivoted, and we talk a little bit about that at the start of the conversation.
We set out originally, me and my original co-founder, to build like a Nomad List 2.0, right? So it was a smarter directory. It had a social element to it. It had place recommendations. It had an events component built into it, and sort of the original go-to-market strategy, because me and my co-founder are very much into the Bitcoin space, and there's a lot of Bitcoin circular economies and these new sort of places that, doing lots with like accepting Bitcoin, El Salvador, this, that. And we wanted to kind of go after the Bitcoin spaces first, and then expand out from there. So we always had like some level of Bitcoin, in the app. There was always like an element to it. But yeah, fundamentally, we're trying to build a Nomad List 2.0, and then things kind of expanded from there. As we looked at what sort of technology stack to build on, we selected this protocol called Nostr, which is it's kind of like, if I had to really simplify it, it's a social protocol, which pushes the identity down to the protocol level. So what that means is people's relationships, their social relationships, are not don't live inside the app. They live at the protocol level. So they can log into any Nostr-enabled app, and their social relationships are all there. So it's kind of like if you could log into Twitter with your Facebook account or your Instagram account, right?
Right. And then all your followers come with you, and they're all, exactly, right. Which
Correct.
are a powerful notion that all of a sudden gives back the control to the content creator, as opposed to centralizing it. And so that X has all your followers, and if X decides to demonetize you, or YouTube decides to demonetize you, then you don't automatically lose all your revenue or your contacts. You can say, okay, well, I don't like YouTube anymore. I'm going to take all my followers and create, go over to Rumble or whatever.
Precisely. And that concept, that idea was at the very sort of genesis of the internet, right? It was the user-centric internet. Things sort of changed, morphed, and evolved because the internet never really managed to have an identity protocol. That was sort of the weak link. There was no monetary protocol, and there was no identity protocol. So basically, identity and money were always apps, or features, actually, not even apps. They were features inside other apps. Right. So you have an identity with LinkedIn, you have an identity with Uber, you have an identity with your bank. You have tons of identities, right? And none of them are actually owned by you, right? So that's why you can be deplatformed. So Nostr and Bitcoin kind of change that. They push money down to the protocol level, and they push identity down to the protocol level. So it kind of opens the promise towards once again, a user-centric internet.
Now, that's what some people call Web 3.0 versus Web 2.0, which was the previous, what we are still dealing with today. And yes, Web 3.0 is, again, giving the power back to the user. And as you say, protocol level, it's basically into your control as an individual. So continue.
Yeah, correct. I'll caveat that with somewhat. I think the Web 3.0 stuff is largely a scam. Like all the crypto stuff is a scam and all that sort of stuff. It's just stupidity. It's just people trying to print money under that sort of a narrative, right? So it's all stupidity. Whereas sort of Nostr and Bitcoin kind of sit outside of that space. And like, there's no like, I guess if there was a real Web 3.0, it would be Nostr and Bitcoin. It would be none of the other nonsense.
So Alex, when did you realize that events were becoming a big thing? You started tinkering with these apps on the side and realizing, whoa, maybe there's something here.
Well, yeah, I mean, events was always a part of the thing. It was just one element. So what we had done was we went very broad. And there's this sort of concept in business like double diamond, right? So you sort of you explore and then you exploit, then you explore, then you exploit, right? So when you're trying to refine the product. And we always, I think what I was mentioning earlier is that we always had a sense that travelers might be a good go to market because these different elements of the app are all about experiences in some sense. But yeah, by the time we sort of built this behemoth of a product and got the first MVP out,
MVP is minimal viable product.
yes, people were a little bit confused about what problem we specifically solved. We're doing too many things. Like, so it was like very hard to sort of just enunciate in a simple sense, like what the hell are we? So the best we could do was we're a travel super app. And that's when my alarm bell started ringing. I'm like, holy shit, what am I doing building a super app? You don't build a super app as a startup. That's a really dumb idea. And we spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out like which of these different product pillars was the most relevant that we could go to market with. And we messed around with collections. Collections on the app are basically kind of like Google Lists, but a more social version of Google Lists. So you can create a list, you can share it, you can collaborate with many people, you can make it public, private, you can show it to your community, and the list looks a lot more like a Spotify playlist than it does like a random static Google list, right? And it comes with a map feature and all this sort of stuff. So that was really nice. But what we realized was that would require a lot of like influencer marketing and curators and stuff like that. There certainly is a market there, but we felt like that was probably a much bigger lift. And then the other thing that people had sort of liked about our app was the events feature. And once again, because we're sort of in the Bitcoin space, we kind of stumbled onto this realization that the current events apps that are out there, the incumbents, really, you've got two major incumbents. You've got Eventbrite and Meetup.com. They're sort of the two. And Meetup.com is more community centric. Eventbrite is more ticketing. There's some new sort of challenges that have come up, like Luma and Partiful and stuff like that, that are trying to sort of be part community, part ticketing app. And we realized there was a space there, but specifically a space where you could not only do normal credit card payments to buy a ticket, but you could do ticketing in Bitcoin as a sort of a native payments mechanism. And that's really where my background is. I've been in Bitcoin for 10 years. Like I built a Bitcoin exchange earlier. And I know the protocol back to front. And what I realized as I started doing some digging is that 80% of the world doesn't have access to like reliable fiat solutions. So if you're someone that wants to run an event, for example, in Argentina, um, you can't use Eventbrite, like because the fiat, rails aren't there. You can't use Luma because you can't get access to Stripe. So if you want to run a ticketed event, you might run the event on a Luma, but then you'll have a link to say, hey, to make payment, go over here, pay me to my Mercado Pago account, and then paste the receipt in, and then you as the host then have to go and check that, and it's a fucking mess, right? So we realized that anyone anywhere in the world could have a Bitcoin wallet. It doesn't matter. In fact, we built a Bitcoin wallet into the app. So someone right now, doesn't matter where they are in the world, they could be in Antarctica for all they want, as long as they have internet access. You spin up an event. The event comes with a wallet. People can then pay for a ticket and they can monetize their event. Doesn't matter who they are, where they are. And alongside that, these people who are running these events can actually, like every time they run an event, they grow their contact list, they grow their follower list. So they're essentially building a community. So to me, sort of the big realization now for the product is, all right, these old incumbent event apps are not built for the modern, what I'm calling the experience economy. And the experience economy is about sort of where the nexus of events and community and creator economy come together. Like it's people wanting to do stuff in the real world again and get the hell off their phone, get the hell off YouTube, get the hell off, Instagram or whatever, and start to do stuff in the real world again. And I think that economy is like sort of the new frontier. Like the attention economy is saturated. The new frontier is the experience economy, and the experience economy is really driven around community and events. So lo and behold, what we've sort of pivoted into is a event-centric community platform or a community-centric event platform with Bitcoin native payments.
Does Satlantis accept either Lightning payments, because Bitcoin has that, it can be expensive on moments when the user fee is really high, the mining fee is really high. So how do you deal with that? There are several what's that?
We're Lightning native, so
Okay,
we just
great.
make it Lightning native. Yeah, makes it easy.
Okay, and so how does that translate to the user? Let's say somebody has some just native Bitcoin. Do they have to transfer it to your wallet and make it into kind of a Lightning compatible thing?
No, we handle the whole thing. So as a customer, you pay and you have one QR code. And so without getting too technical here, but there's a Bolt 12 standard, which basically means that a wallet can pay with Lightning or with Bitcoin. And then on our side, we accept both, and then we will do the cross-chain conversion if needed. So basically, for a user, it doesn't matter. They can pay on-chain or Lightning. And for the event host, it doesn't matter because they just get a single balance that they can withdraw later.
Okay. What is your take, by the way, as the different level 2 solutions? Lightning is the most famous one and for those who are not following, level 2 is another way of using Bitcoin that is much cheaper and faster, also a little bit more anonymous than the standard sending Bitcoin between two people. But Lightning is not the only level 2 solution being proposed and being trying to be rolled out. It's the most popular. Do you have any other take of the other ones that are being bandied about?
Yeah, the other big one that everyone's excited about is Arc. I don't have too much of a opinion because it's still very prototype technical. The what you said about Lightning is accurate. For people conceptually to understand is that these layer twos, the way they function is a little bit like a tab at a bar, right? So instead of when you're at a bar for a night, instead of paying the bill every single time you buy a drink, you just set up a tab. They add it to the tab, and then you just settle the bill at the end. So Lightning is a bit like that. So instead of every single bloody transaction on the planet happening on chain that then has to be recorded by every single node on the planet, is very inefficient. What you do is you create an abstracted layer where everything functions like a tab, and then transactions and payments are moved through. And then on a regular basis, whoever is running the node that functions like a tab, and there's millions of these nodes, millions of Lightning node operators, they will just settle to the chain whenever their channels are sort of depleted or whatever the case is. So they'll settle and they'll close the tab basically on chain. So then you get a aggregate of transactions hitting the chain on whatever basis they want, which is actually what makes it more private, right? Because you have all of these transactions mixed up at the second layer, and when they settle on the main chain, it's just one big transaction. There's no way to disseminate that. That's where the privacy piece comes from. So Arc is a more novel way of doing that kind of solves some of the centralization problems with Lightning. So Lightning is prone to this sort of hub and spoke model where like large node operators end up becoming major hubs. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that there's, I guess there's less decentralization on Lightning than there is. So Arc is an opportunity to provide an alternate solution. But I guess the beauty of Bitcoin is that, you have this neutral settlement layer, which is incorruptible. And now people can build and propose different layer 2 solutions that are as trust minimized as possible to handle throughput without impacting the settlement guarantee of the base chain, which is what Bitcoin is about, right? So it's really interesting. I believe we'll have 5, 10 probably over the next decade. We'll probably have 5 or 10 really good layer 2s. Lightning will probably always exist, and people will be able to choose between which one, depending on how much ownership they want, how much speed they want, how much privacy they want, and all that sort of stuff.
Right. I wonder if you think that this is a case that the low-income countries will leapfrog the high-income countries, because you're rolling this out primarily in places, let's say they have pesos and they're running an event that only costs, let's say, $1 or $2. Even if you're using Stripe, I mean, all these things, these little small payments can be prohibitively expensive, or at least take a huge percentage of the fee. And so as a result, I imagine low-income countries are embracing Satlantis app more enthusiastically than the United States, where we have all these other solutions. So the traditional metric is that, well, the United States invents something like solar technology, and then eventually a third world low-income country will adopt this solar technology. But maybe they'll, like Kenya had their mobile payments, and they were a leader in mobile payments, and eventually now we're catching up. I remember about 20 years ago, Europe was using SMS, and other countries were using SMS way more than the United States, and the United States finally caught up. Do you think the similar thing is going to happen with Satlantis, that's going to roll out in low-income countries, and eventually the United States will catch up?
We'll see. It's still early days. We like right now we have a pretty even split between emerging markets and sort of the US and stuff like that. And that's more just a function of because we're Bitcoin native. A lot of the Bitcoin community is adopting our app. And you've got a lot of Bitcoin people in the US and all that sort of stuff. So I think I'll only know data like realistically a year from now. These emerging economies like the Africas and the Argentinas and everything of the world, they're not really um, doing backflips and running towards Bitcoin initially. They're actually doing stablecoins first.
Right.
And that's just because Bitcoin is still emerging, and as a result of emerging, it's going to be volatile in its price, right?
Right.
Not its value, right? Like the price and value are two distinct concepts, but in its price, it's just going to be volatile. So you can't expect something that is maybe one day going to become the global reserve currency, which means it'll be worth billions of dollars per coin. You can't expect something to go from 0 to a billion in a straight line or in a flash, right? So it's going to be volatile for decades to come, right? So in the meantime, what a lot of these people are doing is they're going stablecoins. So what we will have by the end of the year is full support of Bitcoin ticketing, stablecoin ticketing, and fiat Stripe based ticketing. So
What blockchain will you be using for the stablecoin? Will it be Ethereum or Solana or?
no, we can. So Lightning is there's an implementation of stablecoin coming out on Lightning very soon.
Oh, I didn't know
That
that.
to me, yeah, it's going to be so good. So that way we don't have to worry about messing around with other shit coins and chains and all that sort of stuff. It's just Lightning is the best. You got stablecoin on there. You can then it makes it super easy then to swap between stablecoin and Bitcoin as well because it's on Lightning. So it's much more private. It's much more stable. It'll be so much nicer. So yeah,
Okay. So when is that implementation, Alex, going to happen that we're going to have stable coins on Bitcoin, the network?
there is already so there is already some wallets providing stable coins on Lightning.
But not yours yet.
Not yet. No, no, no. Yeah, so our partner, that is our infrastructure partner, is called Ibex. We're using them to provide the Bitcoin wallet functionality inside our app, and they are right now working on the Lightning implementation for stablecoins. So I'm hoping by end of the year, because as soon as they roll it out, we'll just add it. Otherwise, it'll be Q1 next year. But super excited about that.
So what's your vision for Satlantis eventually? I mean, you've already pivoted away from eventually. It was originally kind of more travel app, and then you decided more events related app that's Bitcoin native and allows Bitcoin payments through the Lightning Network. Where would you like to see this be in 2030?
In 2030, I'd want to be much more of a mainstream level. So we have a unique thing, which is every time someone runs an event, as I said, like they actually grow their audience base. So it starts like the app starts to get very sticky, right? And then as you run more events, you grow more of an audience. The more of an audience that collectively comes onto Satlantis because there's multiple events on there, the more it pays for new event hosts to come and run their event on Satlantis, because then they get access to a larger potential audience cohort, right? Because we have more and more attendees on this. So more attendees attract more events attract more attendees, and you get this hopefully a virtuous cycle going. So where I'd hope to be in 2030 is that we are basically like one of the leading events apps around the world. We technically, because of stablecoin and Bitcoin payments, we're technically the only global events app in the world, in the sense that, sure, I can run an event on Eventbrite and it's available for anybody to pay for it globally, so long as they have a credit card, but it's not available for, like, Eventbrite is not available for every host worldwide, right? So we would be the only globally available event app that anybody anywhere in the world can host an event, right? So I hope basically by 2030 to be much more A, mainstream, and B, kind of be the real like global go-to events app. It's like, hey, you want to run an event of any kind, retreat, conference, meetup, anything down to a dinner up through to a conference. It's like, okay, spin it up on Satlantis. You got all the payment mechanisms. You have a pre-existing large community on there already of like people from all over the world that have been to previous events that already have a profile, right? For them, it's one-click register. They all have a wallet as part of their event app as well, that's actually another really cool thing. On Eventbrite, you don't have a wallet, right? Like you pay for an event and you pull out your credit card and you make the payment, right? And sure, you can save your credit cards, but you don't actually have your own balance, right? On Satlantis, it actually comes with a wallet. So you as a user can top up your wallet. You can buy any event. It's there. You can create your own little calendar. So that's sort of what I'm hoping is that we are.
And also you could have privacy, I imagine, to a certain extent, right?
You can, exactly. So you'll be able to set in your privacy settings, like, do you want people who are your mutuals to know which events you're going to, or do you want nobody to know anything?
Because it's based on Nostr.
Not so much that. This is more of like a privacy setting. Like the thing about Nostr is you can spin up an identity, and it doesn't have to be associated to you. So like, for example, if you're really concerned about privacy, you could just spin up an anonymous account, and then you could attend events and pay with Bitcoin, and the whole thing would be anonymous, right? Like you don't have to tie your personal credit card details to it or all that sort of stuff. So you could certainly be an anonymous attendee for any event. And that could be virtual event, physical event, or whatever. And a lot of people do actually care about that. Like particularly, there's this sort of I was at the Oslo Freedom Forum a couple years ago, which is an event that is for people fighting regimes and authoritarianism and totalitarianism and stuff like that. And man, there was like spies that got captured during the fucking event, infiltrated and all this sort of stuff. So it's like, people are super freaking out about their privacy and stuff like that. So these kind of things happen. So if you could go to an event and have sort of an anonymous ticket that you paid for anonymously, like it creates a sort of a safe privacy back. Yeah, exactly. So these things, it opens.
And this was a big deal also because there's been some prominent Bitcoiners who have a lot of Bitcoin who worry about their own safety, about being kidnapped and about the wrench attack and things like that.
Totally.
What about for those who want to host a free event, for example, whether I want to have a little birthday party at my house and it's a free event, or maybe I'm Beyonce and I want to have a free concert in Central Park and I want a ticket for it, but it's all free. Do I have to pay a fee for every event that I create?
No, so it's basically the app is super easy. It's free. You can host as many events as you want. They're all free. If you do ticketing, it's 2% above the base rate. So what that means is Bitcoin and stablecoin costs nothing as a base. So then we just charge 2%. That's our business model. If you want to do credit card, then it'll be the Stripe fee plus our 2%, right? So it'll be a little bit expensive. So Bitcoin stablecoin will always be cheaper. And then if you are someone who's running events on a regular basis, and let's say you have a much larger community or whatever, you could do like the premium version, $50 a month. You get a bunch of analytics and some extra tools, and you get the ability to have a much larger community on there. And you get, it's a 0.2% fee. So it's practically free. And costs you $50 a month, and it makes a lot of sense if you're doing stuff on a regular basis. But free events, by all means, free. Go on. There's no tickets, there's no fee, there's nothing.
Excellent. And where can people get the app? Is it?
Yeah, so they can, if they go to satlantis.io, so it's like Atlantis with an S at the beginning, satlantis.io, and then there's the links to download the app on Android, on iOS. It's fully functional.
Is that a nod to Satoshi? Like the Satoshi as an... Okay.
That's it. That's where the name came from. Exactly.
Not just the inventor of Bitcoin, but also the smallest unit of a Bitcoin is a Satoshi. So you're kind of playing with both of those.
Precisely.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. Well, I'm really excited for you having pivoted and having done this refocus. It's obviously a big need for people to have events and being able to do it both free paid and allowing for low-income countries to host events and get paid for those events in a fashion. And I think asked you about 2030, but now let's end this podcast with 2026. What do you hope to accomplish by the end of 2026?
End of 2026, yeah, man. I want to kind of grow out of the Bitcoin space. I expect 2026 to be a big sort of year for us. I want every single meetup, every single conference, every single Bitcoin-oriented event to come across to our platform, to basically leave Meetup, leave Eventbrite, leave Luna, all that sort of stuff. So that would be, I would say, up until the middle of 2026. By the end of 2026, I would like to see us also be the home for sort of the longevity communities, the entrepreneur communities, the nomad travel sort of stuff. Anyone in those sort of highly connected, highly networked, emerging sort of communities to be hosting the events on our app. That's what I hope to see happen.
Okay. And so when you say you kind of want to move away from the Bitcoin, I mean, the Bitcoin will be always native in the app. How will people who are not familiar, don't you need to have Bitcoin in order to pay for events?
Technically, yes. So when I say move away from it, I mean the focus of like the events. So when you're building, yeah, exactly. So we're going after the Bitcoin events because we're Bitcoin native, right?
Right.
It's
like Bitcoin conferences, Bitcoin meetups, that kind of stuff. But if you want a volleyball event to be hosted on Satlantis.
Correct. So I wanna move beyond the wedge.
Got it. Understood. Yeah. Well, great. I'll put a link in the description, but just verbally, where what you already kind of talked about it. What's the website that they go to find out more?
Satlantis.io. Satlantis.io.
And that's again in the description below. Thank you again, Alex, for your time, and I wish you the best of luck with your app. And I encourage everybody to use it, whether you're a Bitcoiner or not, whether you go to Bitcoin events or not. Try it out, create an event, and that's the way you learn the most.
Absolutely. Thank you, Francis.
And that ends this episode of the WanderLearn podcast, where we explore travel, technology, and transformation. If you'd like to see the show notes with links to what we've talked about, go to wanderlearn.com and click on this episode. If you'd like to connect with me, just remember Tapon. That's my first initial and my last name. Tapon is always my social media username. My website is ftapon.com. Do you want to leave me an anonymous voicemail where you can make a comment or ask a question? Then go to speakpipe.com/ftapon. Furthermore, if you'd like to get rewarded for supporting my projects, then go to patreon.com/ftapon. That's where you can pick up some remarkable rewards for as little as $2 a month. Now, 5 quick favors. Number 1, subscribe to the WanderLearn podcast. 2, download it. 3, share it. 4, review it. And 5, sign up for my newsletter at wanderlearn.com. Our theme music was composed by Eric Stratman. This is Francis Tapon, encouraging you to wander and learn.